So our next speaker is Mr. Kirill Pavlov. So his topic is reinvent the wheel and build the most popular JSON-RPC library. So Kirill, please. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming. Actually, it's an honor to present here, to contribute to PyCon community. Python is also one of my favorite languages, so it's a great pleasure to talk. And first of all, I'd like to thank all of the organizers. It's a great job. Let me talk a bit about the title. What is that? I'd like to share with you kind of my journey with JSON-RPC. So previous speaker Calvin talked about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and stuff like that. And someone asked here that okay, like what did you use? Did you use JSON-RPC? Did you use server? How did you use that? So this probably would help you to cover how to do that. And a bit more about myself. So my name is Kirill, and you can find my GitHub handle there, Pavlov99. And actually, I'm a technical recruiter. So if you need a job, if you find candidates, yeah, let me know. But my experience, my background is actually software engineering. I used to be at software engineer in Yandex advertisement, and then moved to Hong Kong, built the development team here, and then before this company, Terminal 1, I joined Asia Miles Data Science. So this one is actually about a journey. This is about JSON-RPC library. I used to work on that from 2013, so it's a bit more than 4 years. And basically now it's in some way one of the most popular JSON-RPC libraries globally. You can find it on GitHub, and I'd like to share basically what brought me to that concept of writing this library, and how I thought about it, how I write, and also about how to make a good package others people would like to contribute. Yeah, basically, table of content could be like that. So basically, let me introduce first about JSON-RPC. What is that? And then talk about reasons why this library came to the world. And in a way, I say that reinvent the wheel, because at that time there were already multiple implementations of JSON-RPC. It's like super easy protocol, right? It's like someone said that, okay, it's so easy. Like, why do you need to write a library for that? In fact, there are 5 different libraries, and yet I found reasons why it makes sense to actually have another one. And I tried to do a demonstration with vanilla server in Django API, and then just some random thoughts about what makes a good library. So first of all, statement is that JSON-RPC is very simple. That's not me, that's Wikipedia. And yeah, so basically JSON-RPC has 2 words, right? So JSON, so everyone knows JSON, and RPC, a remote procedure call. So the difference with, say, REST API is that you're calling something, remote function call, as compared to working with resources. And I think that's actually a very simple idea. And let's just go for the history of JSON-RPC. I just put several dates there, I think several interesting dates. So the first version was XML-RPC, right? So like Microsoft era, 1998. And then actually I was surprised, so REST specification was proposed in 2000, but I think it was some PhD thesis by that time, while JSON-RPC 1.0 in 2005, it was actual committee of people who gathered together, actually defined the specification and agree on that. JSON-RPC 1.0 is very, very simple. Like if you would if you would ever design JSON-RPC protocol, you'll probably design straight away JSON-RPC 1.0. Just very, very simple. We have a JSON object, we have methods or function, and we have parameters. And we just pass them in the object, and that's it. That's done. But apparently there were several issues with that, particularly how to handle errors, how to handle multiple requests, how to work with concurrency there. And that's why there is a JSON-RPC 2.0. Actually, it took about 5 years, I would say 3 to 5 years to get JSON-RPC 2.0. And there is another one, which is called notification. I think actually it was proposed because of asynchronous operations. So basically client notifies server to do something, but doesn't really need to get the feedback straight away. There is a batch support, because obviously if you work with a very simple API, you would like to query multiple times. So let's say maybe you would like to get information about multiple users. You don't want to query one by one, you want to query in a batch. And response also has certain format. So it's very, very similar to JSON-RPC 1.0. So it's also JSON-RPC key in front. But I think what's the most important difference in JSON-RPC 2.0 is that they introduce specification for errors. Actually, based on my experience, it takes 40 to 60% of time to actually work on errors, to properly document that, what kind of code, so to make it so it's easy to write clients. And I think it was very, very important to introduce error specification there. So basically, error would have another error code with its integer code with short message and some data. So basically, data is going to extend specification for the during the implementation time. And let me just show some examples here. So basically, for the first method, we would like to subtract one from another. So we send parameters in a list. So it's possible to send as a list and get the feedback. Number two is possible to send as an object, dictionary, so ID, just name parameters, and get the feedback as well. So the result is exactly the same. Or it's possible to have notifications. So notifications would not have any feedback there. Okay, so that's quite simple. So that's about successes. How about errors? So actually there are multiple types of errors so we could have. So first, client may say it's invalid JSON, right? How do you parse that? So actually there is a specific code for that, which is for some reason minus 32,700. I don't know why, actually it's for some reason. And obviously we could not place ID there. Methods might not exist, right? So clients get a response that method doesn't exist with a certain error code. And that could be invalid request, valid request. Basically, those are types of feedback which are specified, they're in standard. It's possible to extend. There are about 64,000 slots for error codes, so it's possible to choose any. There is some specification what is possible to use, what's impossible to use, but basically those are typical mistakes or typical, I would say, error code messages which we would encounter while developing servers and clients. And the third one, actually here I probably don't need to read line by line, but essentially here we are talking about batch. So we could send batch, in batch we could send notifications, and batch also might have messages which would actually raise exceptions, but there are no exceptions actually just on RPC, just notification back that that request is not valid. So essentially we send 5 messages, one of them is notification, number 4, the full bar, and we receive 4 messages back. Then I'd like to talk about reasons behind JSON-RPC library and why actually I decided to write it. So basically that's the story started in the company I used to work at, multi-channel. Actually I have a colleague here from the company, Jay. So it was about 2012, 2014, so we had about 10 microservices. And basically at the end we had about 3 full-time employees to support. So just a small team, a lot of microservices. So we worked with API, Baidu, Yahoo, Bing, different search engine API, and as well we had different, not only microservices working via HTTP, HTTPS, but also queues. So basically it was RabbitMQ and AMQP library. And the question is that, okay, well, what to do, right? So you want your API, you want a simple communication between your microservices. So how to do that? So API should be simple. So what does it mean simple? That everyone could just go there and implement. Very, very simple. Ideally, framework for that. Reliable, understand, easy to understand. So what it means, easy to understand. Actually, once we look at the different API specifications, so we thought about, okay, should we do REST? But actually, REST is not as strict. And I'll show you next slide why so. And basically, the other part is that it should be easy to implement clients and servers. If you want to implement 1 or 2 or 3 functions, not 100 functions, just a couple of them, it should be easy. Like you don't need to have a complicated structure there. I have a couple of questions about REST for everyone here. So we all know about REST, right? So get, post, put, like those messages. But there are a couple of questions which are not really clear, right? So for example, is it possible to create object with put, right? Or if you would like to update partially object, should it be put or patch, right? Some people say, okay, well, like I don't care, I just use put every time. Or some people say, okay, I use both. And you actually don't know. If you work on multiple projects, it's so hard to adjust. And actually, the proper HTTP REST requires to implement certain error codes. And we are not talking about here, talking about 200 error code or like 404, like those standard ones. How about like 201, 202, like those ones? Actually, yeah, it's not that easy to remember. Okay, that's true. And the other one is that I know that certain frameworks, they allow to return list of one object if you request object by ID, resource by ID. So for example, user/1. Should it be just one object or should it be list from one object? Like it's not that clear. So it's also something which is not specified. And the other interesting part is that basically meta information. So imagine you work on pagination, right? So like pagination, should pagination return you a list of objects or collection? Or should it have meta information and how to store meta information? And so it's not clear. So that's why every time backend developers implement something on their own, and then it is not that easy to understand for new people coming to the project. And basically by that time, there are several libraries actually, so I kind of have a comparison table. So, so JSON-RPC is the second last. So I started in 2013. So currently, I think only JSON-RPC lib has more stars than GitHub. But basically this one is quite old library. So it's the first person who ever implemented JSON-RPC. So they just, they deployed, and that's why they get a lot of commits there, stars. But actually, once I look at most of the libraries, they all had something extra, which I didn't need. And extra was a server. Every single JSON-RPC library had own server implementation. And I said, why do I need server? Like, why do I need request? I could just plug this library to my own request or to my own Django, and I don't want this library to guide me which server to use. Moreover, if I use RabbitMQ, I don't even need server, right? I don't need requests. I don't need any kind of specification. On the other side, I found one library which actually had a 0MQ as a dependency. I said, like, well, why so? Imagine the non-JSON-RPC and you have a 0MQ as a dependency. That's just too much. So, and as an idea, basically, JSON-RPC has very, very simple thin code, so no dependencies there. And it has optional backend support. So overall, there are some features. Basically, why is that? Features I wanted to actually implement in the library. So first of that is that it should be very portable, right? Like now it's very, very simple JSON-RPC, so it should work with every single Python version, practical Python version. I'm not talking about like 3.1 or 3.2, I'm talking about 3.3 plus and 2.7, 2.6. And another thing is that not every library by that time actually implemented standard. It's quite simple to write something very, very fast. But then at some point of time, different teams face issues which are in the standard but not implemented, and like what to do, right? So, so that's why actually this one implements standard 100%, and tests. I think it's very, very important. I know some of you guys work in companies with obsessed with tests, so that's I think very correct. And the other thing is that actually people don't really want to use JSON-RPC straight away. They want to use it as a plugin to Django or Flask or some other Asyncio, like those kind of libraries. And JSON-RPC has extra backend support for that. Yeah, actually, as a result, I was surprised. Actually, I just realized it this year. So Ansible, who's using Ansible here? Okay, anyone using Ansible? Yeah, not that many. But actually, they use this library in version 1.0. So I was actually quite surprised. Okay, demo time. So there is a URL. So if you like to download and follow. Basically, I'll try to show some vanilla API and implementation with Django. I'll share a presentation, so no worries. Hello. Hello. Okay, guys, do you hear me? So the first example, we would go to simple vanilla implementation. So basically, we have our. Let me show you server side. So basically, server side will be using a very simple server, Roto, and we have JSON-RPC. So basically, JSON-RPC allows to define manager and dispatcher. So basically, dispatcher is a dictionary from function name to actual function. And you could think about it as a dictionary which has those kind of decorator support. So for example, I could write function toolbar, which returns something, it doesn't really matter. And I could say dispatcher add method. Yeah, done. So that's it. Like you don't need to write anything else with that application. And it's also possible to use dispatcher as a dictionary. So for example, we could say dispatcher given echo equals lambda. So we could send we could add lambda functions there or any other function. And essentially, dispatcher works as the it's very similar to dictionary interface. So it just stores the name to function, and then we could use that dispatcher in the response RPC manager. So that's it. So basically, we could add functions, and it takes one line of code to write JSON-RPC on top of that. So let me run server first. So just have some make commands. So we have server, and then let me go for client. So actually, hello. Sorry. Actually, I realized that for client, there is not much need to have a specific library. I know that there are so many libraries in JSON-RPC for clients, but client is super easy. You just have payloads. Like here are some method, parameters, JSON-RPC, ID 0, and then we use requests, so we use native library. So I don't have any JSON-RPC here, right? So it's native, and basically I just assert that result equals to echo and JSON-RPC equals to 0.0 and stuff like that. So basically the first one just uses one method. The second one shows that. If JSON-RPC is not specified, it writes error. And again, like on the implementation side, you don't need to mention that. The library just handles that. And the third example here, add. So it shows that, okay, well, we have add function, which is implemented as lambda. And it's possible to send parameters, just 1 and 2. And at the end, library returns result, which is here 47th line is free. Yeah, so later. So, okay, what happened is that we just run the client in this line, right? And this client used main function, so we just basically it's a test. It's a test. Yeah. So what happened here in this example is that we implemented JSON-RPC server in like 50 lines of code, and actual library is very thin. So we use like 5 lines for all the functions. And I'd like to briefly demo Django example. So basically for Django, how it works is that we have an application, and this application has one file called API. So this file is not a Django file. So it's not a Django file. It is a general JSON-RPC file. We could define API. So library has an API definition here. And this is specific for Django backend. So what it does is that it adds request to methods. So it's possible to use request instance. So this one is a Django request instance inside the method. And the other thing is that we could actually define the exception here, so custom exception. Let's just go for one method here briefly, so ping method. So we have for a method ping, we use dispatcher, we add this method to dispatcher, and we return pong. The other method is just echo, right? So we get a string s and we return string s, right? So methods are very simple. Okay, so the other thing for Django here is that so in Django you use URLs, right? So to map requests to views or to functions, and basically this API has API URLs. So basically, optional backend could provide URL generation for Django here. So that's it. So basically, that's the whole integration. Don't need to do anything else. And then in this case, so I run the server as well. So we have this address, and let me show the client side. So basically, from the client side, from Django, I would not use Python. I would use just command line. So basically, I have a shortcut with makefile. So just example one, like this. So what it does is that it sends post request with content type application JSON, and we have data JSON-RPC method ping ID 0, and yeah, let's see what will be. So basically, server return us a message here, and yeah, so basically it works. Let me show another example. So basically, it shows the code here, what's going on, and at the end, I use Python JSON tool to just prettify it. So in this case, we used methods echo with parameters PyCon 2017, and then we get a response back, right? And maybe example 3. So we use something which is not really JSON, and we actually receive the error that there is a parse error. Again, what's the positive part about that is that we did not implement directly this parse error. We didn't implement most of the exceptions ourselves. We just used pipelines for 2 functions, for echo and ping. And maybe some other error types, so they could be actually quite big. So for example, if we use method echo, but do not send any parameters, there is obviously a mistake, right? So there is an error. But again, we didn't implement that number of parameters issue. This library just handles everything for us. So you remember that error object should have a code, should have a data, and should have a message. So while code and message are standardized, data side is not standardized, so we could see, like, basically you could implement whenever you like there. But for invalid params, this function is implemented by library, so you actually don't need to use anything. Okay, so I think for demos, that's it. Again, idea for Django. So Django is not a dependency here. So this library would not pull Django Flask on its own, but it makes it super easy to implement Django or JSON-RPC APIs. So basically, I guess 20 lines of code can be done. Let me continue with the presentation. Yeah, I just would like to share some notes on how to make a good library. And disclaimer here, I'm not a person who advocates of good libraries, but I think there are several patterns which actually help community to come and contribute to JSON-RPC. And basically, so the first idea is that to implement something simple, it actually doesn't take all the time. So I think it's like 90% functionality I spend like 10% of time. That's it. And then for the rest 10%, it's basically 4 years already, right? So still kind of contributing that. Then I very much like sentence from Y Combinator, make something people want, right? So we already had 5 different JSON-RPC libraries, right? But like, there is no fit. Like, I want something else. give me more, right? So, and the other one, I think, which is pretty much a requirement now. That's documentation. So README file, continuous integration. So that should be green, and then some examples and quick start. I think like every time I look at different libraries, if I don't find examples, I tend to research more, and sometimes just not use the original one. But it's actually the problem is only in documentation, because you don't want to contribute yourself. You want other people to come and contribute, right? So how to make it so others would like to come and contribute, right? So they also would feel some ownership. And how do you make it so people feel ownership? Of course, add them to authors, add them to contributors, And I think that's also quite important to kind of pay respect to people who just read through your code and sometimes it's not as clean. And the other part I think here is the code of conduct, so not becoming popular. So just a general sentence that everyone can contribute regardless race or sex or nationality. And of course some licenses, issue and pull requests. Actually issue and pull requests help a lot. I see so many people just contributing, sending pull requests without any information, like what is that? And they break test and like, there is no way you would merge it. But if you provide a bit more information with issue templates and pull templates, so GitHub allows to do that. So people say, okay, wow, actually I want to, I change, provide more information. It helped a lot. And essentially the whole thing is about having low barrier for testing and for running, for execution. So everyone should be able to just git clone and then, okay, it works, done. In fact, I like a lot from GitHub, they implemented community thing, which is, so they provide you a checklist of what to implement, so you actually don't even need to think about that. So to write the description, readme, code of conduct, and they have a lot of links on how to do that. So very good resource for that is Atom repository, so they have all of that. And in fact, I think writing code of conduct takes actually more than writing code for JSON-RPC. Like it's write good documentation takes more than writing code. So that's just feedback. And the second thing I'd like to talk is a bit more about promotion, right? So you want people to use your library, of course. So how to do so, right? So you want to be a SEO expert, actually. You want to choose a good name. You want to promote because Google will find your library, right? Then, again, personal experience. I just want to share what I've done with JSON-RPC, so I think it helped to become some popularity. So first, JSON-RPC had the implementation link. So if you have some standard, they usually have implementation in different languages, and they have the link to Wikipedia. So actually, I realized that's okay if you add there, so people would go there and then find the library, which is cool. Then another thing, so by that time Bitcoin became very, very popular. So I think now still people talk about Bitcoin and JSON-RPC, and apparently Bitcoin uses JSON-RPC library. So I actually went to different communities for Bitcoin and just post, okay guys, you see that, yeah, just give me your feedback. And in fact, so there is a website called counterparty.io, and they're doing a cryptocurrency exchange. So in fact, they adopted that, and then finally they use that. So yeah, so don't be afraid to actually push your libraries to others. And then Stack Overflow, of course, so because everyone will go to Stack Overflow, we just query JSON-RPC and then just add, okay, then there is one more library, just check it out, it works good. And then another one, which I did relatively recently, so Code of Conduct. So there is a company called Contributor Convenant. They provide template for Code of Conduct, and they also have adopters list. And I was so surprised, so basically you could add your library to adopters, and they have libraries like Atom, they have like Twitter Bootstrap, so like those libraries with tens of thousands of stars, right? And I was thinking, okay, well, how about I also try? So I actually clone it and then send them pull request, and you would be surprised, they merge it within 6 minutes, like on Sunday. Like, how does it work? So don't be afraid to just make a pull request, but write good comments there. And the other one I want to tell about what actually drives me to contribute to open source, because I think like every time I mention it, right, 4 years is actually quite a big time. Like you don't want to, like come after work and like write a code on Sundays, Saturdays. There are 2 examples I'd like to share with you, which are actually a good example what drives me to do that. So the first one is actually that lady. Her name is Trishna. I think she's somewhere in India, and she actually just contacted me on LinkedIn, and then said, okay, well, like, we actually use your library in Ansible. And I said, wow, like, so cool, like, tell me more about that, right? And she said, okay, well, this, and this, and I said, wow, I was like, very nice. And I was in positive way shocked. And the other way is, like, there is a guy, I don't know who is that, Mateusz Pavlik, he's in Poland somewhere, so it's like 8,000 kilometers from here. And again, he's just a contributor. He actually not, I think he's student, or he's not that old. And then he actually put in contributions here in that list. It's like main description of him that he contributed to JSON-RPC. I was like, wow, like what is that? Like it's not like Twitter Bootstrap, right? Come on, like, what is that? And I think that's something which provides a positive feedback, and it drives back, so it engages authors or contributors to actually write more. So that's it. Thank you very much. So again, I'm Kirill. This you can find my email, Terminal1, Picking Jobs, also find there. And I also would like to invite all of you for tomorrow's talk. So apparently I did 2 talks to PyCon, and tomorrow would be Python and awk. Okay, thank you very much.
So we will now have a 20 minutes break. So our next talk